Hey, what's up, everybody? We are here to film our first session of the Young Henrys, which stands for the High Earners, Not Rich Yet. We're live in Houston, Texas. I am Bryant Roloff, along with my co-host Mark Roloff. Say what's up, Mark.
Hey, what's going on, YouTube?
Yep. So we're here to give them a little bit of flavor of what we're here to do and what they can expect from the show.
So this podcast is all about changing your situation. It's about changing your life for the better and getting out of what we call the rat race. Getting out of this, getting up every day, going to work for corporate America, paying your bills, and having that feeling at the end of the month like you never got ahead. You're working for an employer, you're working for the banks, and that's all you're working for. You never move the needle, and you never buy assets, and you never become free. The reality is freedom in this country is all about ownership of assets. It's not about the car in the garage. It's not about the house. It's about buying something that is going to produce money in the long term. It's about net worth.
Yeah, that's right. I think what we're basically trying to say is that the most important thing that you'll get out of this is possibly more of your time back. As you're sitting in traffic today and going to talk to a boss in a job that you don't like, that you would rather do something else with your time, you got to think about, what can I do to get out of this? What are the strategies out there that basically don't have me do something as gigantic as give up my job today, go and do something crazy? We're talking to folks that have families, that have responsibilities, that have bills to pay and mortgages and rents. This is not a group of folks that can necessarily give up a job, right? That's not what we're saying. We're saying, listen, we have been there. We're actually still there. So that's the not rich yet part of this show. And we're saying that you can come on to a show like this and be educated and informed of things that you can do in your spare time and in a passive sense to be able to break out of this rat race, to be able to, as Mark was saying, to accumulate assets, to accumulate net worth, to accumulate a way out and a freedom that you may not have ever thought was possible. Mark and I are in the journey of that. We have each sort of succeeded to some degree and to some level of creating financial freedom. And the tips and tricks that we'll be giving you have a lot to do with our experience, as well as other people that we'll bring onto the podcast that have also developed successful side hustles, successful passive income streams, all kinds of things that have contributed to their journey into financial freedom.
I mean, they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. You got to think about your financial freedom as if you're building a house. Every day you're setting a brick, and then comes the next brick and the next brick and the next brick. There is no get rich quick scheme. You're not going to quit your job. You don't need to work 90 hours a week, but you do need to be smart about your money and where you put it. The second your money's not working for you and it's working for the banks, that's where you're going to start feeling like you're never getting ahead. And you're going to have that financial stress in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we begin, let's go ahead and give a brief introduction of who we are. I'll start. My name is Bryant Roloff. As I mentioned, I am leading, my day job is to lead a training department for a large HVAC manufacturer. For those that don't know that acronym, it is, I don't seem to know it as of right now, but basically it's air conditioning and heating and ventilation equipment. So I work for a large corporation here in Houston, Texas. I'm also a husband and father of two children, soon to be three. So I got two wonderful girls. I was blessed with the news of a third child coming in August. So very excited there. I also own 9 rentals here in Houston, primarily in the Houston Heights neighborhood. So for those of you who are familiar with the Houston neighborhoods, the Heights is just north of downtown and is a very up and coming and in a lot of ways sort of highly developed area that's walkable and very tourist friendly. So it has a good market within the Airbnb space. So part of that is broken up into short-term rentals, and I also have long-term rentals on that. I also am the small business owner of RRE, which is an acronym for Roll Off Real Estate. a company that basically houses our real estate portfolio, and we hope to sort of add on to with other short-term rentals and other items of use to folks, such as property management services and eventually consultative services. I am education-wise, I have an MBA from the University of Utah and a bachelor's degree from a tiny school in Forest Grove, Oregon called Pacific University. And a couple things about me. I enjoy public speaking. I was a Toastmaster president for quite some time and have enjoyed speaking in front of audiences and giving education where I may have some advantages.
Nice. So I'm Mark Roloff. My first degree is in economics and finance. I'm still working on a mechanical engineering degree. I work in manufacturing. I'm considered what you would say the Blue Henry, which is kind of a blue collar worker. I work as a quality engineer in a recycling company. But we're basically, here to teach you guys about personal finance and just bettering yourself. My introduction's going to be a little shorter.
Yeah, very good. So here's the part that you guys care about, right? So we're giving you that background so that there is some sort of level of thought that went behind kind of putting this together. But here's what's important, right? So I'm still in the rat race, and the reason why I consider myself still in the rat race is because I still have have-tos, and I think that's a really good way to think about it. So a lot of people say, well, I love what I do for a living. I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, and I really enjoy that. I'm a teacher. And I say, that's great, right? Do you have to do it? Is that something that you absolutely have to do? And if the answer to that is yes, I have to do that, then you are, of course, in the rat race. And I think that that's something that is a distinction, because there's a lot of people that have created financial freedom in their life and they get to choose to do something. So perhaps they've created financial freedom by being a doctor or being a nurse or being a teacher. And now they get to say, yes, I'm still a doctor, I'm still a nurse, I'm still a teacher, and I don't have to. I do it because I love to. And that's when we truly believe them.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Having that choice to do something is where freedom kind of sits, right? Like at the end of the day, if you have to go to that job, you're not really free. If you're dependent upon it, you're not really free. Like you want to be able to choose your own path and what you do in life. But that takes time, energy, and effort. And you got to place that time, energy, and effort in the right spot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to say is that, hey, you can identify yourself in this position of the rat race as we're showing those cars. I personally have to drive over 100 miles a day to get to work, which is very tedious and mind numbing. Of course, I listen to podcasts and do what I can, but it's still mind numbing work. Right. And so I'm saying that, my time is limited to 3 weeks a year, which equates to about 5% of the entire year. That's what time is given back to me on my normal career 9 to 5 corporate America track. I get three weeks a year. How about you, Mark? What do you get?
Man, I'm blown away that you're driving 100 miles a day.
To a cow pasture.
That's unbelievable.
Oh no. Okay. And you guys, pardon some of the technical issues. This is our first episode, so we are still
working on these
modifying some of the studio stuff.
100 miles a day on a Houston freeway. That's the risk in your life. These drivers out here are unbelievable.
So let's talk about it. This episode really is geared towards kind of setting the framework and kind of understanding if the audience out there is also in this situation where they're overworked or they feel like they're sort of climbing, but not getting any higher. I think one of the things about myself is that I feel like although I'm working and I am dedicating a large portion of my life to doing that I am starting to build something of value that will eventually create a financial independence. And like I said, eliminate the have to. Now, a lot of folks are not quite in that position, and that's okay. this podcast is definitely for you, because we are at different levels. We're going to talk to people at different levels. I know I'm going to bring on, we're going to bring on some other folks in here that maybe at the very beginning, that first $10,000 that they've ever saved, and they're wondering, what do I do with that $10,000 to create real wealth, to create real sort of sustainable financial passive income, or income in any way, to be able to get myself away from this rat race.
I mean, how do you feel when you get that next deal? How much more free do you feel?
Yeah, to me, it's interesting, because I feel like you're sort of building this aspect of your portfolio that protects you, right? You're storing energy that you can get another day in a very responsible manner. Meaning, right now we're seeing inflation at record levels. We're seeing the value of a dollar go down, and so we're also seeing the value of our savings, the value of our stock portfolios, the value of other things that we have done responsibly are now trickling down in value. So for me, when you talk about a deal, I'm thinking of a real estate deal, and I'm thinking, man, I'm storing good value, and I'm storing it responsibly, because as I'm doing that, I'm building wealth and fighting inflation at the same time.
Yeah, I think, for me, as I've, made a real estate deal or invested money in stocks or whatnot that are paying dividends in different places, like, I start to get more and more of a feeling that, hey, I'm getting freer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm less reliant on this job. And, the more time has gone on, I've started to feel like if I got fired today, that's not the end of the world.
Right.
Whereas 3 years ago, I was like, if I get fired today, I am done. I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How am I going to make this mortgage payment? Who's going to feed this dog?
Right. That's a big dog you have, too. I think it's a monster.
He just does not stop.
So let's go into the statistics a little bit and talk about where we are as a country to kind of firm up the point of where we are today, and where you might be sitting in your car, sitting in traffic, and in the rat race, how you're not alone, as these statistics will show. So we're overworked. Statistics of the U.S. work versus other countries, according to 20-something Finance, the U.S. is the most overworked country in the entire world. So that just right there should blow us away, and we should take a pause by that, because we're talking about according to the OECD stats, U.S. workers work an average of 1,791 hours per year versus other country averages of 1,716, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually equates to 442 more hours than the Germans. We know the Germans work a lot of hours. Everybody knows the Germans are engineering a ton of crap over there. We're working 442 more hours, but hey, the Germans drink a lot of beer. They sit around as well and eat long lunches. So, okay, no surprise there. But let's look at this. 294 more hours per year than the United Kingdom. Right. So we know the United Kingdom. I've been to the UK, and I could tell you that those guys wake up in the morning and drink a beer, and then they work a 9-hour day. So these guys are relaxing while they're working, but we're still overworking them. And this is the one that really struck me, because we're working more than the French. No surprise there. But we're actually working 184 more hours than the Japanese workers. The Japanese. And that surprises me, because like in Japan, they have these like situations, because Tokyo is such a large city, and a lot of people can't afford to live in the city. So they live out in the suburbs, and a lot of people, they will sleep in sort of a small area inside of a coffee shop. And I call it a coffin. Yeah, so they go to sleep in these coffins, right? And they just stick their bodies in the coffin. They'll sleep there. I don't know if there's an automatic pull for these things. They're able to get out of the coffin and then go to work. But we're working more than the coffin sleeping Japanese. What does that tell you, Mark?
Man, it's unbelievable. Like, to be honest, like, the statistics are actually kind of interesting, because from like a manager standpoint, you're always like, my workforce is lazy. They never show up. Like,
yeah.
And the reality is, these are like the most working people we have in society.
Absolutely.
They're showing up, they're working hard, they're going all day. And we subjectively, like in the management world, are like, man, we can't get good people. Like, I think reality is for America, we expect a ton out of people.
Right.
Like that idea here in America is, things are going to continue to get better in society, and like you're going to continue to grow with the American dream. And let me switch this. But the reality of that is people are working more and more and more. They're not only working their 40-hour-a-week job, they're working a side hustle, and that's just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Right. I got a guy in the plant right now. He bought a new Mustang. Right. Shouldn't have bought it, but he bought it. I mean, and
is this baby nice?
It's nice. I mean, like, he's not making the money to afford it, so he's like, oh, I got another job. But that's part of the problem is he's got this loan, cheap credit, and now he's got this extra job to pay for it. So he's not just working his 40, he's working pretty hard at the plant, hardworking kid.
Oh my God.
But he's also working that time after.
Yeah, no doubt. That's that's really tough, and it kind of segues into sort of the next segment, which is, right, you're working really hard. We're working harder than the Japanese, the coffin sleeping dwellers. And what do we get to show for it? What are we showing for it? And apparently this kid's showing a Mustang, a really fancy Mustang. But what is the personal savings in the U.S.? The personal savings in the U.S., and I'll bring up the statistics here. So the personal savings in the U.S. is less than 10% at 8.92%, and that is ranging from 1959 until 2023. And it reached an all-time high. The good news is it reached an all-time high of around 33% right around the pandemic. So we weren't spending any money in the pandemic because nothing was open. And then it was an all-time low, record low in 2005. So we were putting a lot on credit and willy-nilly spending money. But the point is that we're spending nearly everything that we make.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you read these articles all the time. People making six figures are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of young people in general with social media think that life is easy, that everybody should be driving the Porsche and having a nice car. And it's hard not to strive for that because you're going to feel less inherently just by living your life in an apartment, driving that 10-year-old sedan.
Right.
And it's like, oh man, I'm going to buy the car because I want it and I see everybody has these. But the reality is there's only a few people that have those cars and they're all financed.
Yeah.
There's very few people that are buying those cars in cash responsibly. And it's usually they're buying it a few years later used.
And the weird thing when you go into any dealership, what do they tell you about the car and the relative price, right? Do they ever tell you the full price of the car? Is that ever discussed at any point, really?
No, they're not telling you anything.
No, what do they tell you?
They're looking for what your payment.
Yes, exactly. How much can you afford per month? And that's where they start the conversation. And I think one of the things we always joke about is like, you can't afford it anyways, right? We always say that. It's like, well, you can't afford this car anyways. You might as well get the leather interior because you can't afford anything. You know what I mean? It's like you're in a bad situation. You might as well buy. The guy might have went in there and tried to buy the Ford Escort or whatever, the downgraded car. And the salesperson probably told him, is like, listen, you can't even afford that, right? You might as well get this Mustang because it's only going to add another couple $100 to your payment. So what's the difference anyways? You might as well be happy is the idea. You be happy now, pay for it later. You're going to get a promotion later. What's the difference?
That's what it is. You're looking for that next promotion for sure.
You're going to need it, baby.
Once they get you to commit, then that next money is way easier.
Oh,
right?
big time.
I mean, once you commit to the car, it's like, well, you need the maintenance back.
Yeah, come on now.
You got to get the undercoating.
Come on now.
Like if you're gonna make this decision today, make the right one. Make the one you're gonna be happy with.
Yes.
And then you're making this decision not off your finances, not off your future, off your emotion of right now. And there's a lot of pressure in that situation, especially young people. They're not used to dealing with that. Like,
that's crazy. It is crazy, and that's why we want to educate as many people and make you guys just be a little bit more intentional, right? So. A lot of the theme in this podcast will be around sort of the influences that we've both had And a couple things that I like to say is like, listen, when you're first starting out, you're new, you may not know a whole lot about finance, you may not know a whole lot about money and investing and all this stuff. So I say, listen to guys like Dave Ramsey, right? Susie Orman, right? That is like, don't buy the cup of coffee and eat beans and rice. These are the guys that kind of tell you to play good defense, right? And I say, like, before you can start even thinking about offense, which is the investment side and the passive income side and the business side, it's like, you got to learn how to play good defense. You got to stop making poor financial decisions and get control of your house.
Man, there was this Oprah episode. I think it was Oprah back in the day, and they got this girl on there, and she's like, she spends every dollar she gets. She's got a high income. She's
Yeah.
like 140. She spends every dollar.
Every cent.
She's like, I just spend money.
I don't know how much.
So behind, they got this curtain on the stage, and they pull back this curtain, and it's just piles of money.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is what you spend every year on that coffee and all this, all the stuff you're buying. And she's like, their jaws dropped. Like,
unbelievable.
What am I I gotta change.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But the reality is that $8 coffee adds up.
Oh.
Eating out adds up. So you really gotta have a big goal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something that you're shooting for in your life, and you have goals that you're going for, like, the now satisfaction is going to outweigh whatever it is in the future.
It's huge. So let's look at these numbers. Let's bring up that statistic there, Mark. So as of January 2023, so these are pretty relevant statistics. In fact, these were just sort of read out loud in by none other than Senator Bernie Sanders, right? So he's concerned about some of the savings habits of Americans and adults. So it's 60% of the U.S. adults, including more than 4 in 10 high income earners. So to your point, Mark, the $100,000 people are not exempt from this. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So 6 in 10, 6 out of the 10 people that you may know are living paycheck to paycheck.
Why does Mike Tyson make $330 million and go bankrupt?
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to manage money.
No, he doesn't.
But that's the problem. It doesn't matter how much money you make. If you can't manage it, you're going to lose it.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of those things where you see the guy driving the BMW and the Mercedes. He may be in a worse situation than the guy driving the Corolla. In fact, he probably is, because he's leveraged to the hills. And so, leverage is good in the sense that you're buying things that make money and appreciate. And leverage is terrible when you're buying things that depreciate and they're consumer type items. So we'll talk a lot about leverage, how to use it to your advantage. I'm more leveraged right now than at any point in my life. I have so much money leveraged that I've taken out from the banks to buy these houses. And I consider the banks my partner, right? So it's good money that I've taken out. I've taken it out at very good, today I'm not saying not to take out loans, but I've taken them out during times of great interest rates. And so the idea is that the money that I do take out isn't for couches and cars and, what else do people take money out for? It's like, you name it.
Everything.
It's just like... It's crazy. I see these signs for the weirdest things, and they're like, you can finance, TVs. I seen people renting TVs, and it's like, wow, you're renting a TV. How is that even possible?
The second McDonald's figures out how to finance a hamburger.
Yeah, I know. It's just like,
it's over.
And then you see another topic, but like the payday loan centers, those guys are just sharks, and then you really can't get out from that. If you're starting with that, if you're going into those situations, you're probably needing a different podcast, really, because it's just, you're getting into a slippery slope, and not that they're not, sort of helpful for people. It's just one of those things where you're in a bad way if you're taking money from those guys.
Yeah, you need the bankruptcy podcast real quick.
All right, So Mark, let's do this question here for a discussion topic. So why do you want to leave the rat race, you personally?
Man, my big thing is, like, I want to do what I want to do in life. Like, I get a lot of fulfillment actually from my job.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that I have to do it.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to the have tos.
Yep.
If I want to go and spend my time doing contract work, I want to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Instead of going to some brick and mortar plant every single day, I think it'd be nice to be a contractor, go to different plants, work on different interesting projects, stuff like that, and then eventually, and I've told you this before, like run my own wedding venue, right?
Yeah, I like that. That would be neat.
Venue. Like I think that's really interesting.
You'd be good at that too. We toured that property out there in Come and Take It. Where is that? Gonzales, Texas.
Gonzales, Texas.
You were gonna be the damn king out there.
That was the best realtor. So he's taking us on a tour of Gonzales, Texas, and he's like, "Man, I had my first kiss over there."
Yeah, I mean, it was the tour of the guy's life.
I was like, "All right, well, stuff I don't need to know, but that's cool."
Unbelievable. Yeah. So those are all really, really good things. I think for me, one of the things that just has always been a big goal in my life is I believe that not only myself, but I believe everyone is meant to do something great. I think we're here for a very short time and that we are here for greatness. We've been given some sort of talent. I have a talent that you don't have, and you have a talent that I don't have. And that talent is suppressed with hours and hours working menial type of things and administrative type work. And being able to eliminate that aspect of our lives allows us to unlock this greatness, right? We're not supposed to be average. We're not supposed to go home and think, man, we're supposed to have this great life work balance. That's really the benefit of our life. And both Mark and I are really big fans of the Uncle G, the granddaddy of it all. That's Grant Cardone. And the 10X rule says that average is worse than being poor, right? I leave a quote there about, sort of specifically what Grant Cardone refers to as just this average mindset. We've kind of set ourselves up for failure when we start to think average is good. And in the book 10X rule, and I'll let you talk about it too, because I know you're a fan, but in the book 10X rule, the one thing that kind of hit me and changed my life, honestly, it was a profound moment when I read it. He was talking about how we don't go to movies, right? We don't go to see a movie where there's an average actor and an average plot and an average director, right? It's like, I want to go see the best movie with the best actors, from Martin Scorsese. And the same with music, right? We want to see the diva that can hit the highest octave, right? That has ever been hit. We want Mariah Carey's 7-octave range. That's what we require. We require the best in entertainment. The same with business, the same with politicians. We want the best out of every single aspect of what we pay for. But yet in our own lives, we only require average. We only require middle class, right? There's this whole thought of like middle class has achieved something. Middle class is actually and if you ever read the 10X rule, which we absolutely recommend, middle class is the death of people, right? It's how you get into month-to-month thinking. It's how your life gets taken from you by corporate America.
Middle class is really, like he says, is a failing formula. At the end of the day, if you really look at statistics of what's being paid in and what's taken out of the system, middle class is where the government starts making money on taxes. The poor, they may put a little bit in taxes through their wages, but they're taking way more out of the system. That's why they say, I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but it's like 60-70% of people don't pay taxes. It's because the little bit that they do pay in, the poor are taking way more out. So middle class is where you really start actually paying taxes and you're not getting the benefit from the government. You make too much money for a benefit. And, at the end of the day, you're not really getting anywhere. That little discretionary income that you have left is not enough to buy stuff in society. So you finance, and then we're back in this whole thing working for the banks. And that little promotion you get, a little bit more money you get, you're just back to giving it to the banks. But the 10X rule is good because it's all about taking action. Right? That's so many people really are lazy and they fail to just turn it on and start taking that massive amount of action.
Yeah.
Like his whole thing is you need to put more effort in today than you put in yesterday.
Right.
Like, you need to really start taking that mentality. I mean, and interesting enough, like I've been doing that at the gym, right? Like, just get a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Put a little bit more effort in today than I was yesterday. Eat a little bit better. But same thing with finance. It's like, make a better decision than you did today. You're gonna mess up, right? You're gonna buy something you probably shouldn't have bought, thinking you needed it. It's gonna sit on the shelf. You got anything like that sitting at home?
Oh, tons of crap. We throw away, truckloads of stuff, just accumulating junk from, having kids and whatnot as well. It makes it worse as you get more people involved. So, so good point. Let's go to our final question, which is to you, Mark. How do you leave the rat race? Just kind of sum that up. Maybe not too much depth here, but just kind of general broad thoughts about how do you leave the rat race?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things really. One, it's managing your money and making sure your lifestyle isn't exorbitant, right? If you're making $100,000 a year, you should set your target at like 50. Right?
Yeah.
You pay some taxes, and then you should have some money left over. But with that money, you have to buy assets that are producing money. So eventually, that lifestyle that costs you 50 grand at your job, now because I had this asset that, let's say I bought a rental property, it's making $5 grand a year. Now I got $45,000. I'm relying on that job. But year after year, as you continue to buy assets and buy things that are paying you money, whether that's stock dividends or different things, you become less and less reliant on that job. And eventually, you don't even need the job.
Yeah.
And then that's really the question of, do I even want this job? Or maybe do I just want to go pursue something else? Right? An uncle of mine, I don't know if you know Dave, but he quit his job making six figures to just basically go work at the airport.
Yeah.
For what reason? Making 30 grand a year?
Yeah.
Because he wanted to.
Right.
I mean, his house is paid off, his car is paid off, he's got his hobbies, and he just wanted to pursue that. He wanted to go work at the airport.
It's almost like that guy in American Beauty where he just goes and works in a McDonald's or, flipping burgers. And he's like, I don't want a manager role. I don't want any responsibility. I want to flip burgers.
Hey, I'm the best fry cook out there. Baby.
That's what it is. Like, I like to work, but I don't want to do anything of responsibility. So good answer to that. I would add on to it that, again, we will talk a lot about sort of playing good defense. And that's kind of a term from Millionaires Next Door, right? So they talk about, the best offense is a good defense. Obviously, we can make a lot of money. A lot of people make a lot of money. You think of doctors and lawyers and they make a lot of money, but then, sort of their accumulation of wealth or their ability to stock up net worth is very low, right? Their actual relative net worth to their income. Let's say they're making $400,000 or $500,000 and their net worth's 150. It's just, oh wow, 150. That might be, to some people, that might be a good net worth. But if you need $400,000 or $500,000 a year, you have less than 3 months after you lose your job to survive, right? So it's a very low net worth according to your savings rate. So we'll talk a lot about defensive strategies. I believe how you leave the rat race is you don't build budgets and build, sort of models of strict rules that you have to live by and audit yourself to. I believe you build habits, right? You build things that are just compulsory and you don't have to think through all the way because it's automatic. You sit down at a restaurant and you immediately order a water. It's not that you don't like soda or beer or other things. You know that the restaurant's going to mark that up 1,000%, right? Drink some water. You know what I mean? H2O, that's the substance of life.
You've been peeing yellow for a week.
And exactly. And so it's that mindset around, like, could you give up some small conveniences, some small, things in your life and gain back some of that money so that you can use that for offense. And that's the second part, is that we'll talk about strategies within real estate. We'll talk about strategies in the stock market and businesses that you can have, that you can use even while having a full 9-to-5 job and not killing yourself. I want to stress that. Like, I think Mark has seen my life over this last year and probably recognizes that, like, I spent a lot of time with my kids at the gymnastics studio. right?
Too much.
It's just insane. It's like I'm there like so many times, and like I'm the only one there. Like out of all the parents, there's a lot of kids in this competitive program that my daughters are in, and there's nothing but sort of nannies. There's many nannies there, and the other parents are sort of the titans of industry, I suppose. Doctors, lawyers, and business people, and so they're busy, right? They're missing that, right? But for me, I've sort of built wealth in a couple ways. Is I have a job that definitely is demanding, but I have a clear separation between my job and my personal life. And then I have a business that actually subsidizes a lot of the fun stuff that I get to do. So I think that's a really important piece, is both that defensive and offensive approach. And then of course the final piece to that is always take action. Right? Don't sit there and analyze deals forever. Don't sit there and think about strategies that are so unique and so great, and forget to actually take action on any of this stuff. It's so important that when you hear a strategy and it resonates with you, no matter what it is, boom, just try it out, right? Just give it a go. So anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, I think as you kind of go on through the journey and you're setting those bricks up with that house, taking risks becomes a lot easier. I really do. Like for me, like before I bought my first property, like I looked at a million of them.
Yeah.
You sent me a million of them.
Yeah. Every day.
I'm like, man, I don't know about this. Like
so much, statistics and numbers.
Yeah, and you're running this stuff and you're looking at this stuff and you're like, man, is this the one? But eventually you just gotta like jump into it and take that risk. And like I think definitely as you continue to go on through the path and you're putting those bricks down, that stuff becomes a lot easier. Like right now I'm way more willing to take a lot of risk and lose a lot of money on my chance I'm gonna better myself than just wait around.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, like with this inflation, your cash is just continuing to go down. Like it's worth less and less and less every day.
Oh my God.
Continue to print this money.
Yeah, it's going to be, basically not even worth wiping your butt with at some point. You're just, you know what I mean? Like it's just really, really devaluing. And so if you're sitting on a bucket of cash and analyzing deal after deal after deal, you're losing money. I would say the riskiest thing you could do, because people talk about risk a lot when we talk about investments and strategies and this and that. And I would say the absolute riskiest thing you could do is do nothing at all, right? Is to sit on your money and to wait for the right opportunity or the right thing to happen and all the things to click together. You are, number one, you are not going to sort of be able to generate the amount of wealth that you need to sustain yourself with that strategy. No one's ever saved their way to $1 million, right? Like there's that old saying. And number two, you're not building any skills. You're not building any knowledge while you're sitting and waiting. You haven't taken the chances. You haven't connected yourself with the right people. And so, when you get ready to do something, you're going to have to start from the very bottom. All that time that you've just wasted has been no value to you.
100%. 100%. People, at the end of the day, don't take a lot of risk. And they sit on the sidelines, and then when that opportunity comes up, they take way too long to think about it.
Right.
That stuff's past. You read an article about a stock, Pfizer is buying a bunch of stock, and you just pass up on it because you're worried about it.
Yeah.
That thing goes up 250%.
You're the guy at the party that was like, I actually identified that stock.
I was thinking about buying that one.
But do you mind picking up the check for lunch? Because I'm dead broke right now.
So, my account's not set up that way. My savings and my checking, my savings. I don't have the money right now.
And I heard something. I was listening to Graham Stevens, who has a podcast that's actually fairly interesting. And he was talking about he was talking with this real estate agent that sells to billionaires. He's famously sort of posting one of the most expensive penthouses in New York City at $250 million. Right? He's a very influential type of real estate agent. And he said, he was asking him like, what's the difference between billionaires and millionaires? and he said, like, billionaires just do not waste time. Right. So they can evaluate deals so quickly. And like he's just like, a billionaire will text me, right? Like make an offer on both properties. We'll be looking at two properties, and the billionaire will text me, make an offer on both properties. Right. Try to negotiate the best terms that you can on both properties. Both properties will serve the use of what I'm going to use those for. So and so the real estate agent was saying, well, I'll call back the billionaire, and they'll never answer their phone. They just simply don't waste time like that. And he's like, when you go out to lunch with them, they will, when the waiter comes and brings the water, they'll just be like, oh, and by the way, here's what I want to order. Like, don't bother coming back until you bring the food. You know what I mean? Just things like that, where he's like, a millionaire will sit there and analyze the deal and want to meet in person and have all these stipulations around this, that, and the other. And so he's like, it's very profound when you deal with a billionaire, how quickly their decision making is. And so that's where it's like goes back to the take action, right? Like the better you are at taking action, the more you get used to it, the braver you get, the more you're not afraid of certain things that scare you today.
Yeah, I mean, afraid to fail is a big thing.
Absolutely.
Especially, I think, like, when you first start, like, it's definitely a very scary thing, right? Like, you saved up this money, you had this money in an account, and it's like, man, am I gonna make the wrong choice? But sometimes you just gotta jump into it. I mean, Cardone talks about buying his plane, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was analyzing it 10 times over. His accountant's like, this doesn't make sense. Turns out he's like, this is one of the best things I've ever done. Just buy this plane. Right. But time for those guys is the most valuable commodity, because money is not that important.
Oh, why is it writing there? That was strange. So anyways, we're at the point of kind of summing this thing up. What we're saying is like, hey, you're probably in the rat race. You're listening to this right now. I doubt you're in the billionaire club. If there's any billionaires out there, holler at us, right? Like, we got some great deals that we'd like you to look at. But if you're not, and you're living, in the rat race in one shape or form, this podcast could be interesting. We're gonna kind of, as you see, we like to joke around. There's going to be some entertainment value there. So, are you in the rat race? What is it? The rat race is the have-tos, is the living paycheck to paycheck, is the not building wealth and sustaining your life and creating this financial freedom. We'll talk about FIRE, a little bit of what that is, but that's an acronym for financial independent, retire early. So, and then the next piece is like, why do you want to leave the rat race? You want to leave the rat race because you want to do, your own thing. You want to take time with your kids. You want to take time on, like, Mark's has his passion with his wedding business out there in Gonzales, where he's going to, bring a cannon. It's going to be the come and take it situation.
And we're going to Conroe.
And then finally, how do you leave the rat race? And that is the crux of the entire podcast, right? We're basically only going to concentrate on the first two questions of what is the rat race and why do you want to leave the rat race, really right now. That's setting the tone. But this podcast is going to be how, right? How do you leave the rat race? We're going to talk to you guys about specific techniques, about different things that you can do, both offensive and defensively. And we're going to talk to a number of other people that are doing it at various stages, right? So nobody here is on a finished product. We're all at that not rich yet product. So we're going through it with you. And I think that's the exciting and fun part about this and what sets this podcast apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the strategy to reach freedom, right? All about the strategy. There's a million of them, from real estate. You have to turn that off and on.
There we go. Okay. Oops. Why are you not centered? There we go. Okay.
I look really good on that.
That was now we can actually.
People are like, oh man, they got rid of the box. But now at the end of the day, there's a million different strategies, from starting your own business to real estate to different assets and financial assets and products and things of that nature. And it's a mix of the two. The multitude of strategies, but we're going to talk about those. We're going to meet with some business owners that are kind of branched out and started their own business outside of work and are still working but growing a business, and basically pursuing their passion after their 9 to 5.
Absolutely. So with that, guys, that's kind of concluding our first episode of this. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and come see us next week for an episode of the Young Henrys.
That's what I'm talking about.